Welcome to our FY '27 General Fund Budget Work Session. We will come to order at this time. A special thank you to everyone who's present, especially our district office staff. It's always exciting when you're with us. We appreciate everyone who is joining us today, whether you're in person or online, and we certainly appreciate everyone's interest in our budget. The adoption of the budget is the single most important role of a school board member, and the information we receive and review today is essential as we look towards adopting a budget that will move our district forward. A special thank you to the many who have worked so diligently on this process. Dr. Royster, thank you to you as our leaders. Thank you, Robin Stack, our Chief Executive Officer, Stephanie Thomas, Director of Budget Services, Dr. Ward, Associate Superintendent for Operations, and Dr. Stevens, Associate Superintendent for Academics. Provide the overview. Dr. Royster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Stiles. Thank each of you, and good morning. There's no one on the board new to this process, and it will look very similar to the way it's looked for several years, because we believe there's value in it being relatively the same, that helps further understanding, and you know where to look for certain items, that we're not constantly moving things around or putting them in an order that you're unfamiliar with. One of the things that we like to do every year is to set the context for the budget, and obviously the context for our budget is the students that we serve, the processes, the personnel, the initiatives that we undertake to ensure that our students are successful. So we'd like to start with a review of that. So as you look at our student success, we're currently ranked number 7 among all school districts in South Carolina on an index of the 21 key measures of academic attainment. We were number 19 in 2012. We've been steadily moving forward and improving that rating. And when we say measures of key academic attainment, what that simply means, and for you all this is a reminder, but for some others that may be present, we look at every measure of academic achievement that is common to all school districts in the state, so that then Dr. McCreary's group can take that data and provide a ranking for where we stand and where all school districts in the state stand. Our students outperformed the state and the nation on the SAT and the ACT. Last year's senior class, the class of 25, earned $169 million in scholarship offers. According to the most recent state report cards, 98% of our schools meet or exceed the criteria to ensure students meet the profile of the South Carolina graduate, as adopted by State Board of Education and State Department of Education. Our elementary and middle schools outperformed the state in ELA math and science at every grade level on the 25 SC Ready test. 85% of our high school graduates are considered college and or career ready, according to the 25 state report card, 10 points higher than the state average. The district's graduation rate reached an historic high of 90.6% in 2025, an increase of 18.2 points since 2012. The grad rate has increased 26 points among African American students, 20 points for Hispanic Latino students, 24 points for students with limited English proficiency, and 37 points for students with disabilities since 2012. During the 24-25 school year, our students earned 13,384 industry certifications, a 9% increase over the previous year, and a 715% increase since 17-18. 2,178 students completed a work-based learning opportunity, internship, co-op, or apprenticeship with 701 partner organizations or businesses. That's an increase of 24% over the previous year and up 1,400% since 1819. 24-25, our students earned 36,901 potential college credit hours via AP or dual credit. That's a 129% increase in a 9-year period. Under Premier Workforce, we're currently ranked number 4 in state average teacher pay. We're currently ranked number 11 in state starting teacher pay. It's important to note the difference between number 11 and number 5 in starting teacher pay is $214 annually. This was the first district in the state where the board approved a $40,000 minimum starting salary for teachers, which is now at $51,841, $3,341 above the state minimum. Our teacher turnover rate for 24-25 was 9.99% compared to the state average of 10.93%. Not only has the board and the district consistently recognized the importance of teacher pay as average salary and beginning pay, but has each year addressed pay for our most experienced teachers, having added 9 steps above the state schedule. All are 100% locally funded. The top pay currently for a teacher in Greenville County Schools is $107,188, 37 years experience with a doctorate. 69% of our teachers have master's degrees or higher. Under Goal 3 of a caring culture and environment, our board, the district, has committed to long-term funding in place to maintain the best $1 billion investment in school construction and renovation. The long-range facilities plan and capital improvement program project and ensure funding for future district construction needs and replacement needs. Our facility staff currently maintains 13.1 million square feet of building space and 3,000 acres of grounds. Technology refresh plan keeps our school technology updated. School counselors and mental health counselors serve GCS students in every school. Full-time resource officers are assigned to every middle and high school and many elementary schools. Shared SROs, or zone patrol officers, serve all remaining schools and centers throughout the day. We continue to work with local law enforcement agencies to take advantage of state grants to achieve the goal of a full-time SRO at every location. 5 security specialists ensure compliance with security best practices, update emergency plans, conduct trainings, and ensure that BTAM teams are in place to assess potential student behavior issues that might result in violence. Law enforcement officers and technicians travel with our 9 portable evolved weapon detection systems throughout the school day, and at entry to athletic and other events. They conducted just under between 900,000 and 1 million searches last year. Our employees carry badges with alert buttons integrated with existing emergency notification systems. You may note there's a bill moving through the General Assembly right now to require school districts to do that. We had that in place beginning of this school year. Fiscal management, the Finance Department received the best possible unmodified audit opinion on the external audit of the annual comprehensive financial report. We have the highest credit rating possible for a school district in South Carolina, A1 plus from Standard & Poor's and AA1 from Moody's. We've received the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting from the Government Finance Officers Association for 39 consecutive years. The U.S. Department of Energy has awarded us the best in class for the following categories: HVAC inspection and maintenance for indoor air quality, and efficient HVAC for indoor environmental quality. We maintain the lowest per pupil administrative cost of any school district in the state of South Carolina, spending less than 1 cent of every dollar for that purpose. The budgeted utility cost has remained stable from 2008 to 2025 because of the initiatives that have been undertaken to reduce energy usage. The slight increase in 26 of $237,000, 0.01% in that period of time. Where do most of our general fund budget expenditures go? $888.4 million to salaries and benefits. Other expenditures, supplies, small equipment, professional development, energy, insurance, all those sorts of things. Non-personnel expenditures, $74.6 million. Within the salaries, this is where those salaries are dispersed. And as you know, there's a reason the people range from larger to smaller. Teachers and aides, $564.6 million. Instructional support, $107.4 million. That one inched up a little bit in the teacher and aide, because these are proportional shares of a pie, inched down a little bit. It was because we picked up a large number of mental health counselors, and they go in instructional support, not teachers and aides. So teachers and aides didn't decrease in number, but by adding those mental health counselors, it slightly moved the percentage in instructional support. Operations at school level, 9.8%. School administration, $50 million at 5.6%. School clerical, $21 million at 2.4%. Then district employees, $48.3 million at 5.4%. District director or above, 1.1% of our budget, $9.7 million, obviously by far the smallest amount of money up there, and the least percentage of money. As a reminder, these are who are listed under all of the categories. This gives you a breakdown into district support, instruction, instructional support, technical and data processing, fixed costs, transportation support, and maintenance support. If you look to the right, you see the total general fund budget. You see this represents 8%, and the pie chart to the left breaks the 8% out into these categories, with by far the largest being fixed cost. And as you look to the next one, you will see, for example, fixed costs include utilities, liability tort insurance, annual software maintenance contracts, and cellular wireless fees. And there's an explanation for each of the pieces of the pie in the table following it. So what have our budgets bought for us if we look over a 10-year period? So not just those results we shared at the outset, but specifically, it's added 10 steps to the salary schedule. It's increased the base teacher salary from $34,271 to $51,841. It's increased the average teacher salary, the average of all steps of $54,199 to $73,060. That's the steps on the schedule. The average actual salary paid, $49,785 to $66,178. We have in that 10-year period reduced student-teacher ratios across all grades with a strategic focus in the first grade. Increased academic and athletic supplements. There was an initiative to increase bus driver salaries, phased in over several years, that increased our starting pay for bus drivers by over 62%. Created a schedule by adding a 5th day of related arts at the elementary level and funding a position to conduct that related arts option so that every elementary teacher had a daily planning time. We expanded the GATE program over 500% from 2 to 11 content areas and 4 to 21 certifications. We're able to employ our athletic directors on a full-time basis as administrators at every high school to manage the large number of programs, athletes, and evaluate and employ the large number of coaches to conduct those athletic activities. Athletic fields and grounds maintenance now funded by and performed by district employees, not by coaches that also have a teaching responsibility, coaching responsibility, but being done not only in a manner that relieves them of that responsibility, but ensures that we maintain the same level of care and quality at all fields throughout the district. Principals were provided a flex allocation for instructional needs, formula-based at each school that they may use to employ a person or persons, or use it for instructional initiatives or purchases they wish to make. Opened 4 new career centers and schools, increased student capacity at 12 other locations, and added 14 weight and multipurpose rooms. We maintained teachers and aides when state funding ended for English as a second language. Still continued to serve those students, having served them in increasing numbers, but the state funding was removed for that purpose. We decreased the multilingual student-teacher ratio from 138 to 1 to 80 to 1, but 50 to 1 in schools with populations, ML populations over 50%. We established elementary reading interventionist positions and expanded them to meet data-driven needs with a minimum of 1 position at all elementary schools. We increased specialized classes to allow a maximum number of students with disabilities to be served at their home-based schools. We've added 3 additional days for special ed aides for targeted staff development. Added ongoing funding for band and strings instrument replacement and purchase. Added assistant coaching supplements in multiple sports to provide competitive balance and ensure adequate supervision for all athletic programs. We decreased the school counselor ratio at all levels. We increased mental health services at all levels, increased clerical support for all schools, added full-time substitutes to all schools, established zone patrols, targeted wage increases for employee work groups with critical shortages, added interventionists, credit recovery labs, and expanded summer school to enhance student achievement. We've added evolved weapons detection systems and personnel to operate them. We've expanded the ARMS program from 1 to 3 sites and increased program enrollment by 190% in 4 years, adding 660 students in grades 3 to 8. We provided activity support, pupil activity support to our schools at all levels, indexed based on the poverty level of the school, providing more support to schools with a high poverty level and a lesser level of support to schools with a low poverty level, as they have the greater ability to generate funds in their local community. One thing we started doing last year, I believe was the first year, it's very difficult to compare us to other school districts. You can compare us on a per pupil expenditure basis. So we created aggregate districts to reflect a population number similar to ours. And you'll see at the bottom, they're created geographically, trying to achieve it through contiguous districts. So there's a southeast, and you see the school districts listed southeast. There is a central, an upstate. And if you look across, you can see what we spend. Less capital improvement out of district obligation, which allows a more equal and equitable comparison across them. In other words, you're not showing debt service there, and then there's a small amount of out of district obligation, which is really not material in number. And it varies greatly even though it's a small number, varies greatly from place to place. So if you look at that, our total budget is $948 million. Now this goes back to the fiscal year 24 insight. So we're drawing our numbers from the state data that is collected all in the same way. And the most current one is the 24 one. They do not yet have 25 posted. Our budget that year in the general fund in these other areas, as reported in that document, $948.4 million. The next lowest one is the upstate districts around us, 78,267 students, $1,057 million. If you look down through there, you will see what amounts we spend and where we spend those amounts. We'll also show you the poverty index of the comparable districts. It also shows you what would be the average ranking of those districts using the same ranks that we use to determine ours. But obviously you have to combine the ranks for the combined districts. So we rank number 7. You put that southeast group together, they rank number 11. That north group together, they rank number 21. The central group 27, and the upstate number 17. Now you will find some districts in there in, I believe, each one of them that rank above us, but as a group they do not. This reflects how they'd rank as a group. So you see what your investment is providing and what level of return compared to pulling these districts together and trying to create four comparable districts as far as student size. You'll also note the value you obtain from efficiency and size in what we're spending on district and program cost at 0.9% of our budget in 24, and the next lowest one is 1.97%. We also looked at combining the 6 higher performing districts using the same data source, FY24 Insight, so we're drawing data that is alike for comparison purposes. And you will see there, our spend is $948.4 million. Per pupil, $12,098. The outperforming districts, you see their total. Now their population combined is bigger than ours, but more importantly, what are they spending per pupil? $15,886 versus $12,098. And you see the differences by categories: instruction, instructional support, operations, capital, out of district, leadership, district and program management cost. In this table, you see all those things. You see we rank number 7, and those districts that outrank us are York 4, which is Fort Mill, Anderson 4, which is Pendleton, York 2, which is Clover, Anderson 1, which is the Anderson just adjacent to us. You may know it more familiarly by the names of the high schools: Wren, Powdersville, Palmetto, Charleston, and Lexington 5, which is the Lexington-Richland combined district. Those are the ones that outperform us in academic attainment for the 25 school year. What you'll also note is their poverty index is 43 and ours is 57. We've also talked a lot about tax abatement, the reduction of taxes granted by the government to encourage capital investment through FELOs, multi-county industrial parks, and tax increment financing districts. You know, it's fair to say that without some of those, some of this development would not have occurred. It's also important to know that none of those, except where you negotiate a tax district, the others, fee and lieu, multi-county, the Board of Trustees has no say in it, none. So that's left entirely to the county council to pass off tax relief to recruit an industry. And the table following this will show you the amount of that. The past 9 years, the amount of tax revenue not coming to the school district for those deals that the school board had no voice in, $329.86 million. If you use the 26 mil value, the total amount of abatement equates to 167 mills. Over the same time period, the district raised tax millage by 26.9. Be pretty safe to say that those millage increases would not have been necessary to have funded the same budgets that were approved had that tax revenue not been withheld. And you see the amount by year from 17 through 25. Ranging from a low of 15.9 million to a high of 44 million. And that, obviously that stacks every year. The abatement that occurred in 17 is still out there. That's still taxes not collected, not assessed. Act 388. So you may recall, and probably, I'm gonna, if I can find a pen. I think maybe one way to look at this, so tax relief, there's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. One is $100,000, right? So on your house, you get $100,000 relief. That comes off the top. So the average home in Greenville County 3 or 4 months ago was selling, the value was $350. So that's coming off of that. Tier 2. I won't call any names, but there's some of us eligible for that as you get older. That's $50,000. So that brings it down another $50,000. So now that value is $200,000. Now remember 388 pulled all of it off. You don't pay anything on your house towards school taxes if it's the house you live in. But every time this was reduced, before 388, it reduced the total value on which the tax was assessed. The state replaced this in the numbers in your book. The numbers, let's say it's X. The number here, let's say that's Y. Tier 3, that's 388. That's the one that pulls all value off. So now your value for operating, 0. Okay? And they replaced it with Z. But it's Z plus. So the year that went in, I don't remember the year, doesn't matter. That number was X, and it's still X. It's never moved. The year that went in, that number from the state is still Y. It never moved. It has never moved. Those have been in place for years. So the state reimbursement for that never moved. Act 388. So that's Z. Z moves. But what you'll see right there is it moves, but it does not move. Look at FY 25. If the 4% property were still in, it would be $201.5 million, for which we got 97 million. So it moved from 43 million to 97 million. So much better than this or this. But all of that would have been before 388, before these changes were made, all that total revenue would have come to the school district for operating purposes. Now, not to confuse the two things, but it's worth mentioning that debt service, which is funding buildings, renovation and capital improvements, equipment, you are paying on your house for that, right? But you're not paying on all of them. So if you're a $350,000 house, you're only paying on $250,000. If you are becoming more experienced, you're not paying that $50,000. So now your $350,000 is actually being taxed at $200,000. Everybody gets the top break. More senior people get the second break, even for debt service. Then you get the rest of it at whatever its actual value is. And I think that's, when you look at this chart, I mean, there's a whole lot of information up there, but I think that fairly well summarizes it. And if you look at that 25 millage rate, that equates to 368 mills. The lost amount. So it's a considerable impact. All right, so we often, a lot of times, because we hear this, because you know Charleston has been able to greatly increase their teacher pay, tremendously increase it, way above anybody else. So I think it's important to understand a few things. One, there are only 10 districts in the state with a lower millage rate than we have, none of which have a higher state ranking. So when you see the green bars, those are the districts that have a higher ranking than we do, and that's their millage rate. The FY 26 mill value for us is 1.9. That's about 50% of the value of a mill in Charleston County. If you use Charleston's mill value and our mill rate, the local tax revenue generated to GCS would be $559 million rather than $313 million. The difference is equivalent to 124 of our mills. Because a lot of people look at that and don't understand, well, why can't you pay as much as Charleston? You see that disparity in value of property, pretty easily understood, the tremendous effort it would take here to reach that same level of pay. All right, based on our current revenue estimates and the expenditures we likely recommend, there'll be a difference between revenue and expense. That's not new, right? In workshop, that's pretty common. It's also pretty common, it's too early for us to project an accurate estimate of the amount of that difference. So before you get your calculator out and start doing this, it's about $400,000 right now. $400,000 to the good. In other words, there's $400,000 estimated revenue above estimated expense. Now, $400,000, you think about the size of our budget, that's not a huge amount. Before we get to first reading, we will have at least one more month of local tax revenue to look at collection rate, amount. Reassessment year is a little trickier to project growth. You know, the millage is supposed to be reset, and it was greatly reduced this year. But there's still subsequent growth after that. It's just not as predictable. We feel comfortable with the number we have in there right now for revenue from two standpoints: the historical track to date, local revenue, and the fact the House budget went over to the Senate, and whatever else they might not have agreed upon, we can find no change from the House side to the Senate side, so it should not be part of a reconciliation process. It's probably pretty solid. It is better for us than it was last year. You'll recall last year there was great deal of concern from the regular school districts about the changes in the formula and how that was affecting our revenue. And Bruce Bannister, one of our local representatives who's chair of House Ways and Means, put forth a tremendous effort and got that formula slightly changed last year. But the more important thing was not so much the slight change last year, is it forced a conversation about bigger change for this year. And so they adopted several changes that Frank Rainwater recommended to them. And our state revenue looks better, far better than it would have looked last year using last year's formula, far better. So that's why our budget's pretty close right now. It still looks very positive. We anticipate little to no change at the state level. Now, the one issue we have is they're still down there, and they're still doing stuff. And doing stuff can result in cost. We don't think our revenue is going to change, but cost. So to give you an example, there was this PE bill. All right, so the short story about the PE bill was it would have added, to our best ability to interpret it, for our elementary schools, doing impact middle or high to any degree, to our elementary schools, that fifth day, we referenced it earlier, you all approved an amount for a fifth day, so elementary teachers had planning during the day every day. Well, schools developed their own, what they would like to do on the fifth day. We did it with hiring somebody like a lab manager, a paraprofessional. It's worked well. That'll have to go away. The only way that doesn't go away is to make the school day longer. And that's really a non-starter as far as, I don't see a circumstance where we would recommend that to you, because you make that school day longer, there's a max to the benefit of a school day length. And then a change to the elementary level, it doesn't just impact all the elementary students, it impacts the middle schools and the high schools, extending their time because of the 30,000 some odd that ride the bus. So that means that fifth day would have to be converted to another period of PE. If they require it be taught by a certified PE teacher, the amount you invested in that 3 years ago, 4, however many years ago it was, would basically double. So it was around 2.4, 2.7, does that sound right, Stephanie? Something like that. So another 2.4 to 2.7 would have gone up because the salaries have gone up since that time. There's, like other legislation that passes, there's a part of it that's not clear. It is very clear that whatever's done has to be planned by a certified PE teacher. What's less clear is, well, does that mean it has to be conducted by one? Or can that aid level person carry out the lessons designed by the PE teacher? So that could drop the cost. Might still have a little bit of added cost depending on how many PE classes have to be run, but likely it'd be about a break-even proposition. If you have to put a certified teacher in there, it's going to be a problem. The other problem, which we'll have to calculate when we see exactly what we have to do, is we don't have enough indoor space. We've got plenty of space outside. We don't have any in some of the large schools, we don't have enough indoor space. They all got one multi-purpose area, elementary schools, which works fine now. But it may not work fine when that's added. Now, fortunately, again, one of our delegation, Senator Turner, while it did pass, he was able to get it inserted that it would not go into effect until July of '27. So that buys us another year. Were it not for that, we'd be having to include a line in there to address either this teacher that we have to add, or if we had to add some small number of aides. So we don't have to do that. So what you'll find as we go through, and Robin goes through the revenue, is very, very positive on the state side. Now, it's still not the amount we would like for it to be, but it is much improved as far as the disbursement of I think they invested $150 million. So the state legislature, $150 million to public ed. So you'll see when we get to that what our share of that $150 million. That's $150 million more, $150 million new dollars. Then you'll see some adjustment in there, what we estimate based on what we've gotten in really through February. Estimate growth in a local tax revenue. Then in similar fashion to what you've seen previous years, all that stuff we talked about, all the things we've accomplished, all that everything that lends itself to that academic rating, the high percentage we've got attaining a G+, they're college and career ready. The key to all that is quality people. So the biggest focus, dollar-wise, the biggest focus is enhanced pay. So what you'll find in there, if you've read through it already or you're hearing it for the first time, so there's $2,450 add to every cell on the teacher salary schedule, $2,450. Or a 3.25% to create that one on the end. Because we have to add one on the end for the people that will now be 38 years of experience. But all the rest of them to add is $2,450. The first few steps, they're different. Is to try to get that entry-level pay, they're required to work additional days in year one. So those numbers will appear flat, year 0, year 1. Year 0, 1, 2, and 3 are more equal in amount, but what you have to think about is what did they make when they started? And it's well above what they made when they started. It's how we can get it entry-level up where we need to have it to be. The other thing is there's some targeted increases there. Special ed aid pay, an increase of 6%. We struggle to get enough people in special ed aid positions. What you're also going to see is 6% towards sub pay for certified subs, non-certified subs, and special ed aid subs. Those are important things in there. And replacing 15 mental health counselors. There's about $500,000 in reductions other than personnel. But the most important thing to note is there's $15.5 million in reduction of FTEs. Not people's jobs, everybody gets a job, but we're adjusting to the formulas that are approved and established. And that's already taken place. I think there's a handful of people left to be placed. if we don't do that, well, you'll see in a minute what a whole $15.5 million would make. That basically wipes out that pay raise. And if we don't know if it's going to be continuing to be a little bit of a decline, or if it will flatten, or if the population will start to go back up. If it starts to go back up, obviously we would add positions back in. But our revenue will go back up. Our state revenue is going to go down because because student count goes down. If we didn't make that adjustment, it would be mismanagement for us to recommend to you not adjusting to those formulas. Again, we're maintaining the same pupil-teacher ratio, the same ratio for principals, APs, counselors, maintaining all those ratios. We're just aligning the number of positions to the ratio. And if you look nationally at school districts that get into financial difficulties, there are two common occurrences that cause it. One is they lack position control. They do not know how many people they have, where they are, and what they cost. Now, you find that hard to imagine, but that's true. We have very good, tight position control. The second thing is, and you'll see this happening because enrollments are declining throughout the country. There are school districts that do not adjust to the decline in enrollment. Well, if you don't drop personnel in tandem with dropping enrollment, you reach a point you can no longer sustain it financially. So it would not be prudent to fail to adjust it. Now, we're adjusting it on the backside. We experienced the decrease this year. So we're adjusting it now because the time you want to adjust it is in the spring going into the next year, early spring, January, February, March, going into the next year, winter into spring. So you can place people. And we have enough vacancies, we can place those people. So it takes this process. So those are the biggest changes. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Robin, and she'll talk about the revenue. And we would ask that if you've got revenue questions, kind of make note of those, hold on to them. Ask them when Robin finishes her section, and then when Stephanie and Susan and George talk about the expense side, if you would hold your questions in a similar way, make a note, whatever, hold them till the end of the expense. Because sometimes the question you're thinking may get answered as we go forward. If not, we want to get it before we get way over into the other side. So, Robin?
Thank you, Dr. Royster. Revenue starts on page 1-1, and we don't have a video for you to watch, so I'm going to call out the page number as we go through it. So looking at page 1-1, there are three major revenue sources, and that includes local, state, and transfers in. When developing this budget, we continuously monitor taxes, the revenue collections from those, and the actions of the General Assembly. The most recent actions that have affected school district revenue are listed on page 1-1. And there are a few I would like to point out. The state aid to classroom funding formula was changed to better align the weights for regular and charter districts with classroom dollars allocated. The next one is the reduction of boat tax revenue from a 10.5 assessment ratio to a 6% ratio. And this is implemented over a 3-year time period. And finally, Greenville County implements a new ordinance on how resulting FELO revenue is distributed to other taxing entities. Okay, page 1-2. The first category is local revenue. The largest component of local revenue is property tax. The mill value is the foundation for projecting property tax. It is made up of 23 different categories of property, and those are listed, well, most of them are listed on page 1-2. A category of property is closely monitored by our finance department is vehicles. They tend to be volatile and one of the first to be affected by fluctuations in the economy. However, vehicle taxes provide a significant amount of our local revenue stream. In FY19, the percentage was 18.3%. And you can see the other years listed there for you, up to 18.9% in FY25. Vehicles have an accelerated rate of depreciation, which decreases a vehicle's assessment ratio and thus the property taxes paid. State law provides that a previously taxed vehicle cannot exceed 95% of its prior year taxable value, which essentially is a mandatory minimum 5% depreciation each year. This means that even if a used vehicle rises in value in the market, it cannot be taxed greater than 95% of its prior year tax value. Page 1-3. At the top of the page, you can see the percent of revenue that vehicles are as of our February month. Now, countywide reassessments in South Carolina are implemented every 5 years as required by state statute. Therefore, reassessment implemented in 2025 affects the district's FY26 property tax revenue. A reassessment ensures that property taxes are determined on an updated fair market value of properties. State law requires a rollback of operational millage to ensure local governments receive the same amount of revenue from property taxes after reassessment as they did before reassessment. As a result of the rollback calculation by Greenville County Auditor, the operating mill value, mill rate for Greenville County Schools was rolled back 17 mills for a mill rate of 141.2 from 158.2. The next paragraph shows you how the mill rate has acted over a 3-year time period. For instance, 5.4% was seen in FY19 to FY21. And in FY24 to 25, excuse me, I've got a frog in my throat. It increased 6.1%. And you can see that a 3-year trend line for property taxes remains pretty steady. But if you look at a year-to-year property tax change, you can see that in FY19 to FY20, that was a 2.9% increase. But go down and look at 24 to 25. That was a 6.1% increase when compared to the prior year. And you can see all of the annual increases in between those years. For example, from 21 to 22, the increase was 10.9%. The estimated FY27 property tax revenue of $325,531,000 includes revenue from Greenville County and portions of Spartanburg and Lawrence counties. It also includes an estimated reduction of $160,000 in boat tax revenue. Can y'all hear me? Is everybody, okay, thank you. We will continue to monitor the tax revenue for the rest of the fiscal year. The next category is fee in lieu of taxes. It's a fee paid by a company instead of property taxes. You go to page 1-4. In FY '25, the annual comprehensive financial report and the district's property tax revenues were reduced by approximately $15.8 million due to Greenville County FELO agreements. In prior years, the county distributed FELO revenue to other taxing entities based on their millage ratio. In the fall of 2025, Greenville County changed the distribution to increase the amount of revenue kept by the county to be 80% of the resulting fee revenue compared to the prior years, which was approximately 31%. The ordinance includes FELO agreements in multi-county parks and is structured to take funding from FELOs approved effective January 1st, 2023 going forward. The district tracks the FELO agreements, the total of the fee, the district's portion, and the start and end dates. The projected FELO revenue for FY '27 is $24,150,000. Act 388, which became state law in the summer of 2006, has had an ongoing major negative impact on state education funding at the local and state levels. The act exempted all owner-occupied residential property from paying operational taxes to a school district's general fund. It imposed annual millage caps for school districts based on inflation and county population growth, and limited assessed value of property in the district from increasing more than 15% over a 5-year period. Due to Act 388, the state attempted to replace this revenue source with the creation of the new Homestead Exemption Fund, or HEF, and its 1% or 1 cent increase in a statewide sales tax in June of 2007. The Homestead Exemption Fund is discussed in more detail in the state revenue section. Now, the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office calculates the millage increase required to address escalation in operational costs resulting from inflation and county population growth. For FY '27, the CPE has increased 2.63%, and county population has increased 2.21%. Page 1-5. You see the chart here of millage that has occurred from FY '16 to FY '27. For Greenville County Schools, existing carryover millage totals 35.1 mills, which is a combination of 16.1 mills from FY '24, 10.2 mills from FY '25, and 8.8 mills from FY '26. Greenville County Schools has 16.1 mills from FY '24 that has not been used and will lapse if not levied for FY '27. The FY '27 millage increase cap, which is based on CPI and population growth, is 4.84%, which translates to 6.8 mills as allowed by Act 388. And finally, the miscellaneous local revenue categories includes interest income, tuition, lost and damaged books, summer school, and the proviso for handicapped education, contributions from private sources. And it's projected to generate an estimated $7.5 million in FY '27. Turning to page 1-6, state revenue begins. And just a reminder of EFA, It was in place from FY 1977 to 2022. And the Education Finance Act, or EFA, provided state funds for 70% of a defined minimal program of education, which used a per pupil basis base student cost. Local revenue funded the other 30%. But beginning in FY '23, the new education funding formula was established. It was is the state aid to classroom teacher salary. It's based on teacher salaries and a component of students per teacher. If you look down in the middle of the page, that proviso legislation uses a formula based on the number of teachers needed to attain a statewide student-teacher ratio, which is 11.2 to 1. And that ratio was used from FY '23 to FY '26. The current legislation continues to use this formula also. Each district's share of the new funding is computed using its weighted pupil units as a percentage of the total state weighted pupil units, or the proportionate share. Each district receives a portion of its state funding calculated using the local district's index of tax-paying ability. In theory, there is a 75% state share and a 25% local share. However, in reality, a district share will fluctuate based on the estimated local ability to pay taxes. For 2025, the Greenville County Schools appropriated state share is 77%, with local funds making up the balance of 23%. On page 1-7, the new formula differs from the Education Finance Act as shown at the top of page 1-7. It was updated for FY '27 by legislative action and combines the CTE weighted students with the K through 12 weighted students. And it increased that weight, the weight from 1.0 to 1.1. And that's shown in the little chart below, where CTE is combined with K through 12 students for a 1.10 weight. The formula update also at the bottom of page 1-7 and on top of 1-8, it also reallocates approximately $81.8 million from state aid to classroom, CTE, to a separate line item and establishes a formula to allocate these funds to school districts, charter school authorizer, and multiple district career centers based on the prior year's 135th day average daily membership. Turning to page 1-8 at the top, it also included health insurance funding in the same state aid to classrooms formula as a part of the fringe portion of the average teacher's salary / fringe cost. This change reduces the amount of insurance allocated in the health insurance line item under state revenue. And finally, it removed charter school weights for brick and mortar and virtual from the weighted pupil units used to calculate state aid to classroom funding. While the funding to be determined by the theoretical number of teachers needed to achieve state objectives and allocated to districts on a weighted pupil basis and the index of tax-paying ability, districts will have the flexibility to spend those funds as they determine best. The FY '27 preliminary new education funding formula revenue is projected to be $430,224,000. The next category of state funding is health insurance, and this is the one that was decreased because the funding was wrapped up in the state aid to classroom formula. The amount not used in the state aid classroom funding formula are allocated as a separate line item of state funding. These funds are allocated proportionately using each district's weighted pupil units, and the FY27 preliminary allocation is $1,446,000. Going to page 1-9, retiree insurance is the next category of state revenue. It includes health and dental insurance for retirees. The agency or school district from which the employee retires is required to fund a portion of the insurance cost. For FY25, the amount paid for the retirement surcharge was $38.8 million. However, the revenue received from the state was $28.8 million. The FY27 preliminary allocation is $31,253,000. Then we have the categories that Dr. Royster talked about earlier. The property tax relief, Tier 1 revenue it's the $100,000 exemption for a owner-occupied home. Districts received 90% of the allocation on December 1st, and the remaining 10% they receive in April. The allocation for FY27 is the same as prior years, $23,410,000. The second homestead exemption, or Tier 2, is a property tax exemption given to persons who are 65 and older, blind, or disabled. It's the first $50,000 in fair market value of your home. And it's fixed, as Dr. Royster said previously. The allocation for FY27 is $5.9 million. And finally, the Homestead Exemption Fund, or Tier 3, is the state's attempt to reimburse school districts for operational property tax revenue that would have been generated by homes if it were not for Act 388. The amount of the district would have received have Act 388 not been passed was $673 million for owner-occupied homes through FY25. The State Budget and Control Board's preliminary estimate for FY27 is $107,146,000. Moving to page 1-10, the final page. FY27 other state revenue includes bus driver salaries, heavy equipment fees, merchant's inventory tax, manufacturer's depreciation, and motor carrier tax. The estimated revenue for other state revenue for FY27 is $26,779,000. And the final category of revenue is transfers in. Federal law allows school districts to charge an indirect cost rate for federal special revenue projects and food service to cover the cost of administering federal programs. The charge is based on an indirect cost formula approved by the State Department of Education. The preliminary revenue estimate for FY27 is $3,654,000. That includes the revenue section. Is there any questions?
On the first page, you mentioned county passed a new ordinance that was increasing their share of kilo revenue,
Yes, ma'am.
which used to be 31%, and they've increased their share to 80%?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Is that because they want to redirect that money for
Yes, ma'am.
really whatever they want, but probably roads?
That's
That was
comprehensive.
that was the action they took last year. Their first swipe at it was they were gonna take basically all but $1, which that's what the law allows them to do.
So they left 20%, and that's for schools and fire departments and,
Well, no.
oh, okay.
So ours is proportional based on the millage that your entity has. So whatever they don't take, so if the county's taking 80% and what's left is 20%, we'll get the larger share of the 20% because our millage is higher than a fire district's millage. Everybody got reduced, but it was proportional. So whatever portion they got, because the pieces of the pie aren't equal. I mean, you got some fire districts, you got some other special purpose districts, you've got Greenville Tech, you've got the library, you've got Bon Secours. All of them have a mill number attached to it. For some of them, it might be very small, it might be 1 mill. Well, whatever 1 mill represents of all the millage, they'll get that percent share of 20%. So if your mill, for example, reflected 2% of all the millage in the county, you'd get 2% of the 20%, if that makes sense.
Yes. Thank you. So, for our FILO revenue, it looks like only about $1.3 million reduction though? Is that the difference?
You talking about in the FILO?
Yes.
About $1 million in the current FILO. Remember, they said they would not go back. So going forward,
So
including any of those FILOs that are generating 24 million, they have to be renewed at some point. When they get renewed, it will go to the county getting 80% of that one. So that line over time can continue to go downward.
All right, thank you for that
Mhm.
explanation.
Mr. Savers?
Robin, on page 1.9, you reference Pier 1, 2, and 3. And Pier 1, you made the comment when related to 23,410,000.
Yes, sir.
That did not include any increase this year?
It's frozen. Both the
Always
tier
frozen.
1 and tier 2 allocations are frozen.
So there's no consideration for inflation at all from the state?
Not for those purposes.
Thank you very much.
I think the other thing to add to that point, I didn't mention it earlier, and I think Robin did mention it, it's not up there on that chart. There has been, that we've seen, no effort to replace the boat tax. So that $160,000 hit this year, and it becomes what in the next two, Robin?
It doubles next year and then triples the final year.
So the total amount in the final year, the total amount of loss is how much?
It's over 40%, but less than
Dollar amount.
50.
It's a dollar amount. 3 years added together.
Yes, it's around $1 million.
So that million, you can add up there to tier 1, 2, and 3. You can add, it doesn't have a tier name because there's right now no proposed replacement. So you can add boat tax relief to it. It's how much, Robin?
Total, it's about $1,043,000.
All right, and there is right now no proposed relief for the lost revenue. It's just relief to the owner of the boat and the motor.
passed with 100% participation in the general session.
If not close to it, yeah.
Thank you.
Ms. Milton?
On page 1.5, Robin, you had mentioned that there was some millage that was not used, I think 16.1, that was available. How is that, how do we access that, or how do we use that?
So that would be when you're looking at the total or final budget, and the administration has brought to you, or you have decided to add something to the budget that would require a tax increase. It would require you to use a portion of that or all of it, depending on what you're asking for and what you approve. And if we do not include any tax increase of 1 to 16.1 mils, we don't get access to that in future years.
Okay, so this year it's like use or lose, I guess.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions in regard to preliminary revenue for Mrs. Stack? Still a call out?
Robin, on the millage, I know that in the last couple of years, we haven't really assessed a lot of millage. How much millage have we lost because of the way that they have it set up?
So if you look at,
Over the years.
yeah, if you look at the last column, cumulative allowable millage not levied, that's where we're sitting right now. And that includes the 3 years prior. So we get the access to 3 years prior plus the current year percentage.
So is that the 34 or 35.1?
Just the 41.9.
41.9 cents we received our allocation cap for this year, or millage cap for this year.
Okay, so in the previous years, when we haven't levied, the millage that they allow us to levy,
Mhm.
we can use 41.9.
We can use we have the ability to use 41.9 mils this year
And if,
in
And
total.
if we don't use it, we lose the 16.1.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you, asking us to levy?
right now, there is no millage increase in here.
So we would lose the 16.1.
Lose 16. And that's built up over the years. That will be the largest amount I guess we've ever lost.
Yeah.
We'd have to go back and look at the intervals to tell you if we've lost some over time, but it's been like maybe 2 mils or 3 mils or something like that.
Yes, sir. So during the COVID years and when growth was really large, that's when we got the large amounts like the 16.1, the 10.2 that you see in growth for millage for growth and inflation, which is the third column over. That's where you see the large increases because CPI was so high. And a lot of people started moving to Greenville. So Greenville population increased. And you can see before that, it was kind of steady. And
We don't need to levy any millage for growth.
At this point, we feel comfortable with what we've got included in the expenditure budget. And quite honestly, I think we'll be able to increase the teacher pay and the regular employee, other employee pay a little bit before first reading, or certainly by second reading. So we think we've covered the things that are of greatest need. Now, again, that'd be a very different picture if we weren't truing up to the student population we have. It'd be a very different picture as far as giving raises and that sort of thing.
So, whenever they pass the book, I would say, when they did Act 388, and they gave us the opportunity to levy millage instead of them just giving us the money from the property taxes. That was their way of passing the buck to us, for the people of Greenville County to see that we are basically levying taxes.
Well, sort of.
So,
Yeah, because the school district's always had, Board of Trustees has always had the ability to levy local taxes. Within it, there was a cap on it. You couldn't do but so much. So that always existed, even before Act 388. And the board would, most years, raise taxes to increase teacher pay, to meet the needs of growth, meet that sort of thing. Now, what Act 388 did was it backed out the homes. You can still levy taxes, but that means when you do it, it's more focused on a smaller group of taxpayers, unlike debt service, which is on everybody. And it started out, again, it's the only one of those tiers up there where they have increased it every year. The issue is it did not increase. If you had kept the same millage rate all these years, you would have far more money than you have using their replacement funding without ever even increasing the millage. That's a lot shorter way of saying what we showed up there on all those slides. Because that does not, they don't go look at how much would owner-occupied homes have brought into every school district at the millage rate they have and send us that much money. That's not the way they do it. I believe the way they do it, Robin, is they take the amount that 1 cent generates
Yes,
and
sir.
they divide it up. And then they use their formulas to apply that, divide it up to each school district. So as you saw by that chart, it doesn't anywhere near equate to what owner-occupied would bring if it were part of operating taxes for school districts, which, that's one of the things that we say over and over again, but it seems like it's still a lot of the general public believe they're paying taxes for school district operations on the home they live in, and they're not. And unfortunately, I don't believe that all the elected officials, unlike you all as board members, I don't believe they're clearly communicating that. That we're not, none of us are paying taxes on the home we live in, and we either own or the bank and we own it. We're not paying for school operating taxes there. Now, if you've got rental property, you are. If you are renting, your landlord is paying some. Small business, they're paying. Most large business and industry, they're getting tax breaks through FELOs, multi-county parks. So it really, the brunt of local taxation falls to those of us who own cars, trucks, whatever, and
Small businesses.
and small businesses on people that own rental property. Now, the car part, as Robin mentioned, you've heard us say this every year too, if you keep that same car, the value's gonna go down at least 5% next year, well, even if the car goes up in value. You know, that's been like an anomaly in the last 10 years. Maybe in 5 of those 10 years, if you had a used car, it'd go up in value. They're up right now in value. But you're gonna be taxed on 95% of the value of that car that was established before. And now they're removing a portion of the boat and motor, which I never really understood why they taxed a boat separately from the motor, because you would think having the motor on the boat increases the value of the boat, and that would have been an increased tax rather than a rowboat that doesn't have a motor on it. But
A lot of the stuff they do don't make sense, but that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. Ms. Mosley?
Thank you so much. Dr. Royster, I'm sorry I missed the long-range facility plan meeting, so this was discussed. I don't have this information. I was just curious, since it is sort of the driver of some of this, these numbers that we're seeing, what is the enrollment decrease or expectation?
The projection for next year, Drew, is 70, what? 75,760.
Down from, what was our,
We were at 78, we're sitting on like 77, about right at about 77 right now. And we're projecting a little bit of a drop. Now, it does not appear in here. You know, we always have personnel for growth. When we get over on the revenue side, you will not see personnel for growth. But we are holding 25 plus FTEs because we may have growth, and what we certainly will have people will shift around. And we don't want to be in there pulling a teacher out the first week of school. So it doesn't appear as an add to the budget because it's not an add. It results in less of a reduction. There's like 15.5 million in personnel reduction. There's less of a reduction because we're holding that back in case there's growth and to accommodate shifting enrollment.
okay, and just for the record, we are handling that reduction in Perkins MTA through attrition, like retirement, people moving away.
We've placed all but, how many, Scott?
For the excess, I think there were 4 left, please.
Yeah, there were a couple based on Christmas. It was less than 6 last Thursday. Probably a few of those have been placed since that time.
And it's also important to note, one of the times when we, you know, early in the year, we get a lot of people say they're going to retire. We also get a number that will tell us when it's time for contracts to come back. And they're not due for, it's almost a month, I believe, aren't they due they're due May the 10th. So we'll have some, and then we'll have movement after that. So we're down to a number that it's not going to be difficult to place. And we also committed to placing working retirees if they wish to go. Some of them don't want to work anywhere except like right here, but we've committed to placing them somewhere. Now they want to wait around and see if a place opens at the neighborhood school where they've been working. They're certainly welcome to do that up till through the hiring, end of hiring, which happens right before school. Well, it happens all during the school year.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Ms. Brett?
Thank you. Ms. Sack, can we go back to 1-3, that page? That second paragraph right there, you said that we did roll back the millage, and what was that number again?
17 mills were rolled back.
Okay, but that is completely, so what we're speaking of today and what we see up there is completely different than our debt service millage, is that correct?
Correct.
Is that a completely different thing? So I think what confuses people is you see that too on your tax notice, and you actually are contributing to the school system's debt service
Right.
through those mills, correct?
Right.
And right now, those are the same, right? 48.5 as last year? Did they roll them back finally?
No,
or what?
debt service is sitting on 48.5.
Right,
What we said in long-range facility plan, we're, based on what we recommended to you all, we can go to 47.5, separate and apart from whatever the auditor's action was or wasn't. You know, we said to you early on, we thought that was probably a mill. It could have been dropped a mill or so. Running the numbers we've run, what will bring you, in fact, it's whatever's in that, whatever's in your material for tomorrow's committee of the whole,
right.
which is basically a condensed version of what we went over in the workshop. We can get that in at a 47.5 with a 1 mil reduction. The 17 mil drop in operating moves it from how many mills to how many, Robin?
158.2 to 141.2.
Okay, I was wondering where that was going. Okay, so the debt service mills actually go to what we'll be discussing tomorrow, which is different, correct? So where does that extra 55 million that's floating around, that will be, that's, once they collect that, they haven't collected that yet though, right? Because that was,
It's being collected
as
now.
people are paying now.
Yes.
Right, so where will that live?
Nowhere in this.
Okay, that has
It-
absolutely nothing to do
No,
with what we're
it,
talking
it
about.
goes into debt service.
Sure.
We sell the bonds. When we sell the bonds, the revenue from the bonds goes into the building fund and the capital fund.
Mhm.
So that money's still sitting there in debt service.
Okay.
Then we pay the bonds off using the money sitting in debt service that generated the revenue that's over here funding these projects.
Okay.
And that 55 million that resulted this year, and when you look at it, and it's in the material for tomorrow, when you look at it, you'll see that millage brings in varying amounts when you sell the bonds. And you can see different times, one year will bring in more, the very next year will bring in less. You know, generally speaking, operating brings in more each subsequent year. The bond sale doesn't always do that. I mean, it eats up more of it for the sale, and you realize less cash. So separate and apart, we cannot spend that money on anything in here. And we have literally, over time, moved everything out of here that years ago the district might have paid for, because a lot of it's one-time expenditures. Or it's recurring, and the cost for it can then be distributed over all taxpayers instead of on the smaller number that fund the general fund. So like activity buses. Well, we're paying for that out of capital. So everybody is paying towards buying them as opposed to buying. You could buy them out of the general fund budget. Smaller group of taxpayers having to pay for them then at the $100,000 apiece. So it's better business practice to anything that's equipment, major equipment, that it be purchased through the capital budget, which is funded by the sale of bonds, which is paid by the debt service millage. So that will go from 48.5 to 47.5. This one, as presented to you today, is within the 141.2, which is down from the 158.2 that it was previously. And as we able to look at March and the beginning, at least partial revenue in April, we believe this will go up a little bit.
And I do think that that is really what is confusing to not only the general public, but, me as well.
It's
It's-
very confusing.
It's something different that, we sit here and we go through this budget, and that's what the public sees us talking about. And when we speak of mills and mills increases and stuff, I think this is what they understand and see. But your tax notice is completely different, and so then they see that they are paying debt millage, and they're like, they'll fight with you about that, but that has nothing to do with the other.
Right.
So,
Right. And it's been, and our goal has been for that debt service millage to stay stable as it can over time, to generate the amount of money so we don't get in the hole that created the problem that Best was the solution for. And it's better if it's steady, and when we create the recommendation for what to build and when to build it, we try to set it in a manner, and we will, all of that moving projects in there isn't always to do with population. A lot of it is to do with making sure we have a smooth millage. So we might move a project this way so it doesn't have to go up. Or we may move it this way to prevent it going up down the road. Because if you look back over till 1999, I think there was three increases since 3 increases and 2 decreases.
Yes.
Is that right, Robin? Since 99. But we have, with that infusion of the BEST program, we have been able to stay just ahead of growth and been able to replace, as we're doing now with Bryson and Northwest, able to replace buildings that need to be replaced.
Thank you for that clarification. And then I have one other thing that Ms. Doolin actually touched on, and that was what the county council adjusted with the fuels and stuff last year. They gave a number, I felt like, and you're gonna probably know the answer to this, but the first number was like, we were originally looking at about 14 million coming to us, and that this year, at least alone, has gone down to 5 million. And you're telling me now that that's probably going to compound and get less and less. Is that what we're thinking?
Yes.
And that's due to
'Cause-
contract renewals and that kind of stuff?
Well, any going forward are on that new formula, then as those FELOs are renewed. And the number we started talking about originally, we didn't say much about it. That was the general fund impact. That also impacts debt service. Because they're being pulled out of paying debt service too. So that impacts that, and we're looking as what we have in recommendation along the facility plan takes into account, that's going to diminish over time as well. And it's not going to increase like it had been increasing.
And as far as county council is concerned, then does this money just go back into their budget and we go searching for it line item to find out what they're doing with it? Is that kind of how that works? Yeah, okay, well, I appreciate your help. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Brett. Ms. Leventis Wells?
Well, Dr. Royster, first of all, thank you for explaining this, because I think a lot of constituents don't understand exactly the breakdown on anything. So I appreciate that. I also appreciate, and let me just understand this correctly, you're not looking at an increase. You're not looking at a millage increase. Is that correct? I can't hear you.
Yes, ma'am, that is
Okay.
correct.
I just want to know.
I wasn't thinking about it, shouldn't be nodding, I should be saying.
Yeah, I just, because I understand during this time of uncertainty, that, you know, people are stressing, and I've received a number of calls, and I'm sitting there going, nothing's been said, so let's just wait and see. So I look forward to the presentation tomorrow, and the delivery, and Ms. Dax, thank you for going through the millage increases and so forth. I hate that we have to lose those, but I understand if we're fine and we don't need it, thank you. And with that being said, I'll pass the mic.
Thank you, Ms. Leventis Wells. Last call for questions from Ms. Stack on preliminary revenue. Ms. Middleton, you have an additional question? Okay.
Okay, sorry for additional questions. Talking about the FELOs, now, a while back, we approved the Lawrence Road situation there, expansion of the Lawrence Road. Was that a FELO, or what was that called?
TIF,
The TIF.
Tax
Okay.
Increment Financing District.
Okay.
So the distinction between that, if someone applies for a TIF, the two most recent ones was the Malden project and the Lawrence Road project. Unlike multi-county and FELO, you get a say. So you all had the opportunity to approve or not the TIF, but more importantly, the breakdown within the TIF of how much would come to the school district. And that's locked in for the life of that TIF. So going back to the more recent example, that Lawrence Road area TIF, the life of that TIF, I don't remember what it was, Robin, you will be, the district will be, we will be entitled to that amount, that percent of the tax revenue, and there's nothing others can do to change that. That became a legally binding agreement among the taxing entities affected, which would have had to been the city of Greenville, and us, and the county.
But we haven't realized any revenue yet, because it hasn't even been built.
We haven't recognized any new revenue. And the TIF will apply to the increased value, not the base current value. So however much it's bringing in now, it'll be that. The new amount will be divided based on the agreement acted on by the board.
So the TIF is a good benefit for the school system.
It is now. Earlier, when we were getting an equitable distribution, it might or might not have been. Now it appears to be, generally speaking, the better vehicle for the school district.
I did have a question on 1.6. You talked about the student-teacher ratio of 11 students to 11.2 to one teacher. Obviously, that's not actually, classes are not actually that size, of course.
That is a number that the state took. I guess as they're listed in there, the categories of personnel that are
Yes,
included.
it's in
What
here.
paragraph is that, Robin?
Page 1-6, it's about the fourth one down.
All right, so in paragraph 4, if you look at all those people there, counselors, audiologists, media specialists, psychologists, ROTC instructors, retired teachers, that means retired teachers still working. They took every person in those categories from, I don't know what they call the report now, it used to be called a PCS report. Every district reports their personnel by category. They took all the people reported in those categories from the whole state of South Carolina, and they divided that into approximately 770,000, because that's the number of public school students. And that became their ratio, 11.2 to 1.
It's really an artificial ratio.
It is. It is certainly an artificial ratio. But that's how they calculate everything, all the money you get for everything, except that little bit for the tier relief and the little bit for benefits. All the money we get to do everything with is calculated on that 11.2, which obviously doesn't take into account you got to have custodians, you got to have secretaries, you got to have clerks, you got to have a principal, you got to have some assistant principals. You got to have people to make sure that everybody gets paid. You got to have people to make sure everybody gets hired. You have to have maintenance employees. You have to have all these people. They're not in that formula. But that's what's generating your state revenue, then based on what they have determined your ability to contribute locally is.
Will that change, that formula at all, as our enrollment is due to decrease?
No, the ratio will change. It doesn't change based on the number of students, except if that total number of 770,000 goes down, it could change the share size. But our share, it's tempered by weighted pupil units, so it could go down some. But it doesn't affect that overall amount. The overall amount is determined by the total number of students in the state divided by the 11.2. The 11.2 has changed. One year it was 11.1. And I think, was it last year or was last year 11.2 as well? One year it was 11.1,
And then
one year it was 11.2.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Middleton. Last call for questions. All right, if there are no other questions on our preliminary revenue, thank you so much, Ms. Stack. We appreciate that. Thank you for answering all of our questions. We're going to move on to the forecasted expenditures, beginning with Stephanie Thomas, our Director for Budget Services.
Thank you,
Stephanie,
Thank you,
have
Dr.
the floor.
Stiles. Expenditure items under consideration are located in Section 2 of your packet. And just as a reminder, expenditures are separated into two groups, state mandates and then local priorities to meet strategic education plan goals. The first items are state mandates that fall under Goal 2, Premier Workforce. The teacher salary step, $6.4 million, covers the state mandated salary increases for teachers based on their years of experience. It includes maintaining the local components that Greenville County Schools has included in its salary schedule to attract and retain teachers, ensuring competitiveness in the recruitment and retention of educators. The next state mandate is teacher certificate upgrades. Greenville County Schools teacher salary schedule has 5 different certificate levels: bachelor's, bachelor's plus 18, master's, master's plus 30, and doctorate. Teachers are both required and encouraged to pursue additional training. I'm sorry, section 2, page 1. I know that it's the sections and the, yes, I know. Okay. Okay, I'm on the second item, the teacher certificate upgrades. So teachers are both required and encouraged to pursue additional training. When that training results in a certificate upgrade, a pay increase is mandated. The projected cost for these increases in FY27 is $955,000. The next item, $1,366,000, is related to employer health insurance premiums, which, as you recall, are calendar-based. This item is for the second half of calendar year 2026's 4.6% employer contribution increase. And the next item, based on the most recent proviso information, we are currently projecting no increase in health insurance costs for calendar year 27. I know, yay. Current legislative guidance reflects a proposed 0% increase for both employer and employee, as indicated by the $0 amount shown. As this guidance, and Dr. Royster referenced, is still subject to final approval, we will continue to monitor legislative actions and adjust projections if needed. The last item on this page is a decrease. State law mandates that PEBA, the South Carolina Public Employee Benefit Authority, to collect a retiree insurance surcharge from employers to help cover the cost of health and dental benefits for retirees under the state health plan. After our FY26 budget was passed, we were notified of a reduction in that rate. As a result, we are able to recognize a decrease of $1,499,000 for FY27. At the top of section 2, page 2, we'll begin reviewing our local priorities to meet strategic education plan goals. The first is the adjustments to formula-based allocations that Dr. Royster referenced earlier. It's $15.5 million. This item reflects aligning staffing to our established formulas based on updated enrollment projections. It's adjustments to FTE positions, not employees, to match the projected FY27 student counts. And the next item is for the planned addition of 3rd grade at Reedy Laurel. The $617,000 covers the additional teachers and instructional aides needed to support the new 3rd grade classes.
Our next item is the request for permanent substitute teachers. This request is for $706,000 to add 15 permanent substitute teachers, placing 1 at each of the 15 schools with the greatest difficulty in filling vacancies. The addition of these substitutes would improve coverage for classes and maintain instructional continuity. Our next item is a request for behavior specialists. We're requesting $399,000 to expand our number of behavior specialists from 12 to 15. These specialists provide expertise in applied behavior analysis, conduct assessments, design targeted intervention, and coach staff in responding to complex behavior. And I do have a clarification to the statement in your notebook. The word certified should read experienced. Our behavior specialists are in varying degrees towards the certification requirement for that certification. Our next item is behavior support liaisons. This investment of $324,000 would increase the number of behavior support liaisons to strengthen the day-to-day implementation of multi-tiered systems of support. Liaisons provide hands-on classroom support, ensure consistency in behavior practices, and work directly with staff in general and special education settings. Our next request is for special education aides, an increase of 10 FTEs. This request of $494,000 would add 10 special education aides to provide special education classroom support, increase student engagement, and provide required one-to-one support for students when needed. Our next item is a request for special education specialists. This request includes $586,000 to add 4 special education specialists, which will increase support for school and district professional learning, compliance support, and effective instructional practices for all teachers supporting students with disabilities. We are in the middle of section 2, page 3. The next request is for school psychologist FTE at a cost of $104,000. This school psychologist would expand and expedite mental health services and strengthen our MTSS systems for students. Our next request is for an additional occupational therapist. This request of $119,000 will add an additional occupational therapist to expand and expedite services supporting students' functional and academic needs. And the last request on page 3 of section 2 increases to existing academic contract costs. An additional $258,000 is needed to adjust existing academic contracts to meet current obligations and to sustain instructional programs and services. This request does not include any new technology platforms for student use.
At the top of section 2, page 4, teacher's salary schedule increase of $2,450. This is the cost to increase all cells on the teacher salary schedule by $2,450. With this increase, the starting salary for a first-year teacher in Greenville County Schools will be $54,344. Teachers receiving a step with this additional $2,450 will receive salary increases between 3.26% and 6.34%, with the average increase at 4.79%. The next item, adding step 38, our current teacher salary schedule has steps from 0 years to 37 plus years experience. Adding a step 38 will ensure that our most experienced teachers at the top of the salary schedule will be moved to the additional step and receive that commensurate salary increase. The last item on page 4 is adjusting special education aid salary scale of $1,025,000. This item supports recruitment and retention of special education self-contained aides through a targeted compensation adjustment. It includes a $2 per hour increase across all pay rates, moving the hourly salary range from $20 to $23.50 per hour, while keeping the current step structure in place. You can see a breakdown of the updated rates at the bottom right underneath what I'm reading. This adjustment strengthens our ability to attract and retain qualified staff for these essential roles. Okay, moving to page 5. The first 2 items on this page relate to proposed targeted increases to substitute pay. The first is a 6% increase for special education self-contained aid substitutes to help us improve fill rates and ensure consistent support for students with the most intensive needs, helping to reduce disruptions in these critical roles. The next item is a 6% increase in substitute teacher pay at a cost of $286,000 to, again, help improve fill rates and maintain continuity of instruction while supporting daily operations and minimizing disruptions to student learning. Overall, these 2 adjustments are a targeted strategy to help us better attract qualified substitutes and reduce disruptions in these critical roles. The last item on page 5 is an increase to the non-teacher salary schedules at a cost of $7.6 million. This provides step movement for all employees and adjust the schedules to ensure a minimum 3.25% increase, recognizing the important role all employees play in student success while supporting the recruitment and retention of high-quality staff needed to maintain the district's standard of excellence. Moving to page 6, at the top, bus driver compensation for years of experience in the amount of $111,000 supports step increases for bus drivers as they gain additional years of experience, recognizing their continued service.
Our first item under Goal 3, Caring, Culture, and Environment, is a request for funding for mental health counselors. This request of $698,000 will transition 15 mental health counselor positions from the expiring Healthy Greenville grant to the general fund, resulting in 70.5 general funded counselors for the 26-27 school year.
Your next line item of $335,000 is the transportation technology increases due to a loss of E-rate funding. Previously, the district relied on federal E-rate funding to support school bus Wi-Fi services. Since the FCC has eliminated eligibility for this expense, requiring the district to now assume 100% of the cost. Wi-Fi is essential for transportation safety and operations, supporting GPS tracking, live view bus camera systems, and student connectivity. In addition to connectivity costs, the district must also fund the annual NetCloud licensing for approximately 540 Cradle Point routers. These routers are specialized cellular routers installed on each bus that provides secure internet connectivity. Due to the loss of federal funding and the essential role of bus connectivity in supporting safety, operations, and student access, funding through the general fund budget is necessary. The next line item is district property liability insurance premiums. That is $262,000. This reflects our estimate for increased premiums based on current and projected market conditions. Next line item of $673,000 is an increase to existing service and supply contract costs across multiple departments. Prices of materials, supplies, and services continue to increase. This request reflects increased funding for school maintenance and support across building services, maintenance, grounds, transportation, and ETS to cover cost escalations in existing contracts. As you're aware, all of our major multi-year contracts include inflation-based escalation clauses. On the next page, we move into reductions of expenditures to FY27. The first line item is athletic trainers of $400,000. Following the addition of $150,000 in FY24 and $250,000 in FY25 to support newly implemented athletic trainer fees, the district has been able to negotiate an agreement with Prisma Health to return to a no-fee model. And this change eliminates the need for these expenditures and results in general fund savings.
Our next expenditure reduction is for international teachers, and this item reflects a reduction in the administrative fees associated with our international teacher program due to declining participation, with a decrease in projected hires from 12 to 8. As a result, we are decreasing $56,000.
Also, the next line item is a reduction due to a change in wireless service provider, and that is also $56,000. And this item reflects the reduction in wireless service expenditure resulting from the district's transition to a new service provider. The change provides more favorable pricing and plan efficiencies while maintaining our required service levels. The district was also able to reduce the number of devices and negotiate a tiered pricing plan for individual hotspots based on usage of data.
Well, it's not specifically listed there, but we mentioned earlier, there's obviously a $15.5 million reduction in positions to align staffing to the formulas. And that appears in your document in a different place, but we don't show it specifically as a reduction.
Okay. And then to summarize expenditures, at the bottom of page, section 2.7, is a summary of the revenue and expenditure information that has been presented. Notwithstanding any other changes to revenue or expenditures, these preliminary estimates project revenue in excess of expenditures of $434,000. And really quickly, before I turn it back over, I'd like to just take a moment to walk through the remaining information we've provided to you today. If you'll turn to your work session appendix, just want to make sure you know what is there. Included in the appendix is your FY27 budget calendar, the district calendar for our current year and next year. You have school personnel formula allocation information for elementary, middle, and high school. We give you our student-teacher ratio history going back a few years. It includes flex information. Our FY27 school dollar allocations, which is a formula per student, per class, per grade level. And then insight summaries, we share with you the information that is published on the State Department's website for both Greenville and the state, and then show you the summary of where we are in relation to other school districts. As Dr. Royster mentioned, we are the lowest in leadership. Also give you our current salary schedule information. And information on page 17 is budget recommendations from our meetings with principals and teacher forum, receiving their input for the general fund budget. We include our salary schedules. It's a lot of information. And then the last page is the state minimum teacher salary schedules, hopefully just to give you some reference points for some items that we talked through today. If you have questions, right there at your fingertips. And then the last item in your packet is the high-level summarized document that groups FY27 expenditures and FY26 budget, and it's shown by the South Carolina Department of Ed accounting code, function, and account. So, and that's that. Turning it back over to you, Dr. Stiles.
Thank you so much, and thank you for that additional information in the appendix. We appreciate that very much. We do have several questions, and I would like to ask the board members who have a question if you will direct it, calling the name of the person you're directing the question to based on the section they presented. And our first question goes to Ms. Mosley.
Thank you so much. Sorry, I don't know who this goes to. It's probably a Dr. Worcester or a Ms. Hogan question. I noticed that several of the line items in here are special ed related. My first question is, did these recommendations or these priorities come out of the special ed audit that we've done? And will we be getting more information about that?
They not only came out of special ed audit, because it came out of all those focus groups we had come in, the summit. Some of it came out of the recommendations from that external audit. It also, some of it, every year we meet with principals, we meet with teacher forum. All of those things aligned to request in different ways additional support for special ed services. So positions in here, because enrollment decreasing, but we're adding positions which should increase staffing levels in those areas. The one thing that's not in there, and you will see it, you may have already seen it if you looked at your committee of the whole materials for tomorrow, is a pretty significant fund balance request for special ed training. It's the larger part of about, 2.1 million.
Yes, sir.
In staff development. The lion's share of that is special ed training. But the short answer is yes, these reflect those things. As well as some of the issues that we also are aware of in there, like the increased pay for special ed aides which would be, I guess, part 2 of that same thing. We did that last year. Having difficulty attracting enough people to the jobs.
Well, I'm certainly glad to see it. I would like a point of clarification. What is the difference? I'm looking at page 11, or 2-2. The behavior specialist, I know what that is. What is the behavior support liaison? What are the difference between those two positions?
So
The behavior support liaisons may not have a degree in the program, so they are continuing to support schools and support teachers, but they do not necessarily have the same degree that the behavior specialists do.
Okay, when you say non-degree, you mean in that specialty or non-degree at all?
Non-degreed at all, correct, correct.
or they could have a
So
degree.
they could, but it's not required for that position. So they have received.
But it's not a degree in that area or
Correct.
related area.
Correct.
Okay, so, knowing how important behavior, understanding behavior in the special needs population is, I'm assuming since the training for these folks are being given, and that's what we'll see in that ask more.
Yes.
That's some of the training
Some
in there.
of it.
There's training for teachers in there and as well as paraprofessionals, but
Yes.
yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm very pleased to see all those line items for special education. Very much so. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mosley. And our next question is Ms. Leventis Wells.
Thank you. First of all, thank you, Ms. Mosley. That was a great question, because that was one of mine as well. The other one, so tell me, with the, let me find it, it's on the glasses here. It was okay, there it is. International teachers. So we have a decline. What schools will that, where was the decline in hiring and doing away with special ed? I mean, with, foreign, international teachers. Can you explain that to me? Because
So remembering that our international teachers are here on a visa that only lasts for a certain number of years, every
Right.
year we have some staff that roll off based on their visa eligibility.
Okay.
And so based on the number who have rolled off and based on the number of allocations and vacancies that we have, we did not have as great of a need to hire international teachers for new vacancies.
Okay, so Dr. Stevens, what schools did we not need to replenish? These,
So you're asking where the
Yes.
visas rolled off?
yes.
So that, I will have to get that list for you.
Okay.
We do keep a record of that.
Good enough. Thank you so much. No further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Leventis Wells. Ms. Goodwin Caldwell.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions on, the behavior specialist in the special ed. I know that, for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been increasing the budget for special ed. Is the special ed, and the behavior specialist, are they under the same department?
Yes.
They are?
The
What
behavior-
about the mental health counselors? Are they under the special ed department or are they under the counselors?
They are under counselors. So everyone is under the academics umbrella. And then our behavior specialists report through our special education department. And then our school counselors are through our counseling department, and mental health counselors are a component of that.
Are those permanent substitute teachers that you're asking for, are they gonna be roving?
Oh.
Are you gonna have any roving at all? Because I'm looking at what the principals and teachers ask for, and I see we are giving them salary increases. But some of the other things that they ask for on this list, why did we not fund those?
Well, for one, there's obviously a price tag to everything.
Right.
A teacher in teacher forum, a teacher, suggested roving permanent subs. What we decided to do there is we took all the schools and looked at their fill rate. And we took the ones that had the lowest fill rates for substitutes and assigned a permanent sub to them. you know, roving subs not a bad idea, but one of the advantages to those permanent subs is they get to know the school, the students, and the teachers, and conversely, the teachers and the students get to know them. So we believed it was a better application, instead of hiring 15 to rove, to put them in the 15 that have the greatest difficulty filling things. The other thing that we found as we looked at that data was there were schools that were very similar in nature, very similar populations, very similar in size, and they had very disparate fill rates. So one of the tasks that we have given to the assistant superintendents that supervise schools is working with that data. Why is school X over here have a much higher fill rate than school Y, but they are very similar in all other respects? And that may have to do with how they indoctrinate's not the right word, but how they onboard substitutes, how they deal with substitutes on a daily basis. It has to do with how they establish, not the general culture of the school, but the culture around substitute teachers in that building. So most of that is a fix without a price tag. Hiring those permanent subs is obviously a fix with a price tag. So that's the way we came up with that strategy. We need to work on the culture, climate part of it, but we also need to recognize we need some more permanent subs.
Okay, and I wanted to ask about is the regular paraprofessionals, their salaries in line with what we're giving to the special ed paraprofessionals?
No, they are not, because their job is not near as difficult or complex.
Okay, with us increasing.
They'll get a 3.25% raise.
But with us increasing the special ed specialists and the aides and all of that, do we have too many at certain schools? Because I know that they cut. The problem that we had at one of the schools that I was dealing with is that they said that once those special ed teachers and aides left, that they were able to collapse it because they had too much on the baseline.
Yes.
They had too many on
we,
the baseline.
And we look at that.
So why are we increasing
because
if some of the schools have too many in the baseline in the first place?
Well, because we've addressed the ones that had too many. There were others that didn't have enough.
So has that been addressed?
Yes, and that's an ongoing thing, because if you have to think about, every year we have about 8,000 students that come in and out of the district. All right, so 15% of those 8,000, which would be what, 1,200? That's 1,200 special ed students going in and out. So you'll have one come in, they need services that weren't currently being provided. You'll have one go out that no longer needs those services. It is a constant movement. And if that movement reaches a certain number in a certain place, you may be able to reduce a person. Could be a teacher.
So,
If somebody that needs a one-to-one aide moves out and nobody moves in to take their place, you may not necessarily need that one-to-one aide anymore.
are we having more kids that are being identified as special ed since we increase this every year?
Yes,
Why-
over
why-
time,
why-
it's relatively stable now, but we've experienced an increase, I believe, over 3 years, and that is a statewide trend, a regional trend, and a national trend.
Okay, I have a question about in the appendix. You gave us on page 10 in the appendix, you have 23, 24, 22, 23, 21, 22. In here, where's 24, 25? I know we are out of 24, 25, but why do we not have that in?
It's not been published on the State Department's website.
It goes back to,
So the State Department published
Yes, ma'am.
all of this?
They
And
collect-
they have not published 24, 25 yet?
Yes,
No.
ma'am. That's correct.
if you think back, the presentation we did at the beginning was a good one, Kyle Weil. You remember we showed the expenditures, go to like the last two, right there. Remember we showed that, and there's a note there at the bottom that that's off of FY '24. We want to use the state's insight data because it treats everybody the same. In other words, they gather the information the same way from every district. It is always a year behind. Sometimes it's been 2. So we just don't have it yet.
Okay, and with the salary schedules, let's see. I know, we have the charts for administrative, and then we have it for I guess all of the different employees in the district. I was wondering how, where are most of our salaries on these charts? Is it the AA to AB, steps? Because I see that on some of them, on some of the salary schedules, AA to AB, all of those are over 100,000. So I want to know and I saw with the building level that their salaries were much lower than the administrative level. Where are
yeah.
most of those falling on the salary schedule?
How many
The ones
pe-
that we have.
How many
here?
people are on,
But, well, what's the average salary on these schedules?
where's that
for
report
the
where we
people
report
that we have
average
here
salary?
in Greenville County?
And is that
It's
in there
just
somewhere? You
teachers.
know what I'm talking
It's
about?
just
If you
teachers.
could get
It's
that
just
for me.
teachers.
No, the one we have sent to the
In
state.
looking in these salary
Oh, it's on
schedules,
our-
some of them,
It's not
Can you
in
pull it up?
building level and,
If you're looking at like principal,
support staff and all of that.
if you're looking at principal and assistant principal, there are many of them that are over 100,000. Obviously, the higher schedule, that's those 48 people.
I know
That are
I see it-
above-
I see
that
it
the-
goes by days, as to how many days
Yes,
they
they're-
work.
There's a building level
Yeah.
schedule, there's a district level schedule. They're broken down by how many days they work. There's, obviously, there's 6,000 people that aren't on the teacher salary schedule.
So are all of our supports, are all of them hourly, just hourly? Because I'm looking at our support schedules, and I know that most of our custodial staffs, they work year round.
Yes, they're 245, and they are the only people in the district that are paid on a 40-hour week are maintenance techs, maintenance employees, and custodians. So they're 245, 40 hours. Everybody else, even 12-month people, are 245, 37.5.
Okay. Now, if you could get that for me,
Mm-hmm.
I would appreciate
Did you
it.
find it?
And I had one more question about the clinical licensure salary schedule. Who are those people?
Mental health counselors. And who else, Dr. Turner?
The nurses on there?
It's on page 36.
The nurses are on there.
Because it looks like, it looks like their salaries are low also.
Their salaries would be somewhat comparable to teacher pay.
So who is that? Is that nurses?
Nurses, and mental
That-
health counselors.
Nurses and the mental health counselors? I would say their salaries so low.
Well, for a comparison purpose, their salary for the mental health counselors is probably,
Higher than it was working.
yeah, probably 20 or 30%, at least 20% higher than it was when they worked for mental health. For that market, those are high salaries.
Now, do we have mental health counselors in every school now?
We have mental health counselors assigned to every school. Some schools have more than one, some don't have a full-time one. It's based on acuity. What's their caseload?
what is the, caseload numbers now?
Well, depending on what source you go to, it should be between 45 and 60 students. And many of ours, which we're working on balancing out now, do not have a full caseload. And many of them have a waiting list. But we're working to balance that out. We also found in our examination
Is
of,
it so many minutes that they use, that they see the kids
Well-
per week, or?
part of the issue is we begin to look at mental health services, because we've not been in the business of that for long.
Right.
We found that there were more extensive services that were needed for some number of students, that we can't be the provider for that. They're gonna have to move on to Department of Mental Health or some other provider. The other thing we found is there's an unequal workload amongst the people there. So we're working to straighten all those out. We also have not been able to capture 55% reimbursement for 65, right, Scott, or
We're
65?
doing 55.
We started out with
the.
the, we started with a 65 to 70% reimbursement rate from Medicaid, but as those services have been taken by more students, the Medicaid reimbursement rate is down. That coupled with some decisions about Medicaid, so we're now down to 55%. So we had a grant to pick up 15 of them. You see in there the recommendation that we replace those 15 out of the general fund, but that dollar amount only reflects 45% of the cost of them.
Can I ask that, whenever y'all give us these charts that y'all put down here, what ML and GL and GL, what that means? In the salary schedule, it's got down here grade, ML, DL, GL.
Oh,
Y'all know
that's simply
what that means?
the level is the level where your job is placed, and the steps to the right reference, in some cases, experience, and in some cases, knowledge and experience. They're not exactly one for years of work. For one, they only go up to 13, 14, or 15, and some of them don't go up that many. It's a pretty old salary schedule. It's been in use for maybe 30 years.
Since we took over, the mental health, do we know how many we have employed?
Yes.
now Here?
Yeah, we
I
know.
mean, how
Now, we
many
haven't
do we
completely
have?
taken it over. We still have counselors provided by the Department of Mental Health.
So do we know a percentage of what we took over?
Yes, we can send that to you.
Okay. Thank you, that's all.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin-Caldwell. Ms. Linda Mitz-Wells?
Thank you, this is short. The 15 permanent subs, will they get benefits, et cetera?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's what I figured. Thank you so much, that's it.
Thank you. Ms. Middleton?
Nancy's getting her stuff done.
I have a couple questions. On the 11.5 non-teacher salary schedules, so would this include, like, say, speech therapists and that type of thing, and nurses? We did say it included nurses.
All right. The only employees on the teacher salary schedule, teachers, media specialists, counselors, school counselors. I don't think I left anybody out. AAs. We've got a handful of AAs in the district. Those are the only people on the teacher salary schedule. Everybody else is on another kind of schedule. So everybody else is a 3.25% increase, except those additional increases that we specifically mentioned. Like substitute pay, 6%. Their pay's not gonna go up 3.25, it's gonna go up 6. Not 3.25 plus 6, but it'll go up 6. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does help. So you're saying that principals and assistant principals, they are on the non-teaching salary?
They will get a 3.25% raise, or their step, because they've got steps too, but they're not the teacher steps, and there's not 38 of them. They will get the larger of the two raises. So if their step was 3.25 or higher, they get their step. If they got no step, because they've already run off the end of the page, they get 3.25. If their step is 1.5%, they get a total of 3.25. Not 3.25 but plus 1.5, but a total of 3.25. So every employee in the school district, except those noted that will get a little bit higher raise, will receive a 3.25%, including that one group of teachers who's fallen off the schedule too, because their step that we will add will be equal to 3.25%.
Okay, that explains a lot. What about security personnel? I know we have SROs, and that's kind of a shared thing with the county, but what about, didn't we hire some security personnel that were separate from?
Our own commissioned security personnel will also receive a 3.25% raise. The raises for SROs varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. And they have to let us know, like January, February, when we're doing the budget prep, they have to let us know if there's going to be an increase to the contract cost based on what raises they may give. Now, the new state-funded grants cover those for the state-funded positions. But what will end up happening with the others, if they give a raise, we'll end up having 50% more, and they'll pay 50% more of that raise, because it's a 50-50. So if the raise for an individual officer was $1,000, it'll cost us $500 and them $500. But what's happened so far is we've been able to add those grant-funded officers and reduce to a degree our zone patrol. That's covered any contract increase that they've had for their officer raises.
So these are contract increases, but these are included in the non-teacher salary schedule step movement line item?
Nope.
No. That's
Any contract with law enforcement, not our own commissioned security personnel, but law enforcement, is a contract.
And that's a different line item?
Yes, it will appear in the security department as a contract. It does not appear anywhere on our salary schedule, nor do we have any approval. I mean, that's the agency does that when they raise salaries, or the elected body for which they work.
But with our non-SROs or our non-Title 18 personnel, that is included?
Yes, they get the 3.25%. They're on a scale too that has steps to it. So just like I described earlier with a different position, they would get their step or 3.25%, whichever is the greatest. So if they got a step and it was 1.5%, we'd add the difference to it, so they got a 3.25% raise.
We do have SROs at all the high schools, correct?
Yes, and the largest ones have 2.
The largest one has 2, and we have at most of the middle schools?
All the middle schools.
All the middle schools, and a shared thing with some elementary schools?
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
And that has less to do, that has really nothing to do with funding. We could get the grant funds to hire one for every school.
But you can't get them?
Exactly. It has to do with the agencies have to be able to recruit that number of employees, and many of our agencies, which we're served by 7 different entities, many of them have some difficulty recruiting personnel. The smaller ones, not as much, but then obviously they don't have to hire as many people. But the larger agencies have had, because obviously they got more vacancies, they have struggled to recruit enough people.
Okay, well, I'm happy to hear that. That's kind of my thing.
Well,
The
and
other
we
thing-
work closely with them, between Greg Porter, the supervisors from the different law enforcement agencies, because we both apply for the grant. It would be the agency head, like the sheriff signs off on it, and I sign off on it. But we work closely with them. Well, how many do you think you can hire? Whether it's Greenville City or Malden or the sheriff's office. And then let's make sure we've asked for that many and maybe plus one or so. Because we don't want to get the grant, then we don't use the grant and it, they ask for it back. But so as best they can staff those positions, we are asking for them. And I'll send you all an update as to how far we are from having one for every school. But our zones are very small now. I mean, very small.
That's good. Thank you for that. The other thing that I'm very interested in is the substitute teacher, and I'm glad to see there is a substitute teacher in some of the schools. On the substitute teacher, how many schools have a substitute teacher assigned to that school?
Every school.
Every school?
Yes.
Elementary, middle school, high school, I think
They
that's great.
have at least one permanent substitute.
Okay, and we're not adding substitute teachers then, we're just giving them the pay raise.
Well, we're adding
Let me go back to
15
that page.
permanent subs
Oh, good.
to go to the schools that are having the most difficulty filling positions. We also hope that by raising the substitute pay, not the permanent substitute, the substitute pay, by 6%, that we'll have a higher fill rate from the substitutes we have that work on a daily basis. We have some of them that are not working very many days.
So if you have a substitute teacher as a permanent one, they come in every day.
Yes.
Whether there's an opening or there isn't an opening, they do other things.
Well, it's rare there's not an opening on any given day, but yes, if they're needed, they could work in the office, they could assist teachers with their classroom task, but it's going to be rare. Although I think our district-wide, our attendance rate's right at 96%. Well, 4% absence every day on 6,000 would be 240 a day, right? So
Yeah, that's a lot.
that takes, we're pulling, 90 down off of that number. But that's on an average day. And I will assure you that Friday and Monday's not an average day, unfortunately. So it is a struggle. And historically, it's been difficult to get substitutes, but it is more difficult now than it has been. It's always been an issue.
Maybe this will help. Do sometimes teachers have to get their own substitutes? Like, if they know they're gonna be out, are they asked to, find someone themselves?
Ms. Middleton, if you don't mind, would you please stick to budget questions?
Okay. Sure, thank you.
We'll answer your question. We'll send it to you.
Okay, thank you, that's it.
Thank you so much. Last call for questions. Ms. Goodwin Caldwell?
Burke, the increase gonna be 3.25% this year for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so is that in here or something?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which one is it? I was looking for it.
If you look on the summary,
Well, they don't have that.
oh, they
No,
don't.
it's on the bottom of section 2, page 5. The very last item. Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
That says non-teacher salary.
Yes, ma'am. That's
Right,
for the
that's
non-teacher
everybody
salary
else.
schedule.
So with the teachers, are they getting 3.25?
The teacher's raise is generally larger than that. The least group, the smallest raise in there is 3.25%. Is for the step out on the very end that doesn't exist right now.
Okay.
That step we add will be 3.25%. The others, they're getting $2,400, $2,450 added to their step.
Yeah.
So they will go up a step that will have $2,450 added to it.
Okay.
And their step might be 0.5%, it might be 1%, it might be 2%, but they're gonna get that plus the $2,400. $2,450. It's
Okay,
very
so the-
confusing because the steps are not equal height. So if you got a second floor at home, you imagine you walking up those steps, and one of them there's that much distance to the next step, and the other one there's that much distance. It'd be a weird looking thing, and it's equally strange looking the way it's configured.
So across the board, we talk about 3.25%.
Non-teacher, yes.
Not teachers.
Non-teachers.
That
Teachers,
one group of teachers will get 3.25%, and all the rest of them will get a little bit more than that.
the maximum for teachers is 6.34. Is that what
That's
you were
more
looking
than
for?
we've done before, right? I
So
mean,
really,
it's
that step,
lower than that.
the step we add on the end will be an add of $2,450, but that'll be
That's what every step?
3.25% for them.
And that's for every step on the teacher side.
Every step, the cell,
The same.
the little block,
Right,
we'll add $2,450 to it. So they'll go up,
right.
so whatever the distance up,
Uh-huh.
plus $2,450.
Okay, all right. I was looking for it. Thank you.
We hit it.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin Caldwell. That concludes our forecast of expenditures. Again, thank you so much for answering our questions and sharing that section with us. Our next item on our agenda is the summary. Dr. Royster.
Well, I think we have pretty fairly summarized this. We did it at the outset. I'll briefly go through it again. We presented to you what is right now a balanced budget. We believe there may be a little bit more room on the revenue side in a positive way. The only issue we have looming out there is should the legislature put forth some unfunded or underfunded mandate that we're not yet aware of. That's a little bit of a cautionary note. There is a $2,450 increase to every cell on the teacher's salary schedule. So they'll get their step plus the $2,450. There's a 3.25% increase for all non-teaching employees. There are targeted increases to try to increase the fill rate for substitutes, both in the adding of permanent substitutes at 15 locations, increasing the substitute pay as a targeted increase of 6% for teacher sub pay, and for special ed aide sub pay 6%. There is a targeted employee salary increase of 6% for special ed aides, the one-on-one aides, the self-contained aides. There are some adjustments related to contract increases. As you know, most of our contracts have a inflation index escalator in them, so they can go up some every year. Increase to some in allocation for some of the maintenance supplies, materials utilized. There are some decreases in there. We have a commitment from Prisma not to charge us for athletic trainers. We had a reduction in our sales service by renegotiating or negotiating a new contract. The bigger reduction is the $15.5 million that we are recognizing because we're adjusting our staffing level to equal our student population drop. Always important to remember, we're not cutting any people. They just may have a different job in a different place. Not cutting any people, so maintaining everybody's employment that way. And again, a pay raise for all of our employees that right now would be 3.25%, and the teacher one $2,450. If we were to get some, I don't mind saying to you, likely if we were to get an amount that will allow us to move that a little bit, we would probably move that a little bit before we put together the recommendation for first reading. So there are a lot of information in here, but it is centered, as we have said to you at the outset, and said everything we do is for people, and we do it with people, and it's the quality of our people that have allowed us to make the gains that we shared with you at the outset. So we need to make sure that we're continuing to take care of them and recognizing that we need to, in order to retain and attract the best people, that we need to pay them competitive wages, no matter what their job is in the system. So thank you all for your attentiveness this morning. Dr. Stiles?
Thank you, Dr. Royster. I would just like to say to you and to your staff that clearly with these recommendations, there's been a focus on continuing to strengthen our programs, to build student success, and recognizing and valuing all of our employees. And for this, we are most appreciative. I believe these measures, if funded by the board, if approved, will continue to elevate our district to the next highest level of performance. I'm anticipating we're gonna go from a 7 to a 4. And I hope that's the case, so I'm just very pleased and thank you on behalf of the board. Our next step will be the first reading of the general fund budget, which is scheduled for Tuesday, May the 5th at 9 o'clock. And that will be at the central office. And we would like to ask if you have additional questions, that those be sent to Ms. Nancy Fitzer by Monday, April 20th, and everyone will be provided with written responses. This concludes our budget work session, and without objection, we will adjourn. So we will adjourn at 11:40. Have a great afternoon, everyone.